former Deputy National Chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Bode George, says the National Chairman of the party, Abiodun, must leave immediately in the spirit of fairness. Reports say George, who spoke as a national leader, said there's a need for the Southwest region to be given a sense of belonging as all the key positions in the party are being occupied by Northerners. George says he cannot in good spirits campaign for the party in the Southwest in an atmosphere where there is no fairness and the region marginalized. George, who was the Director General of the PDP presidential campaign in 2007, said the PDP could pick an interim chairman from the Southwest just for the purpose of fairness. He argued that refusing to take Nigeria's diversity into consideration will make the PDP no better than the APC, which is pushing a Muslim ticket.
Arise analyst Abiodun Adeniyi, an associate professor, is here to help us look at these political stories and what the 2023 general elections will look like. Thank you so much for being here, Abiodun. And of course, let's look at the fact that, you know what, the calls for Abiodun to step aside is unending. We saw the week filled with all sorts of intrigues. You know, I know that the party did hold its NWC meeting and even other meetings to ensure that they calm off frayed nerves, but it seemed like that call for him to step aside is unending, because if you look at the structure and the hierarchy of the PDP as it stands, presidential candidate from the north, national chairman from the north, board chairman of the BOT is from the north as well. But Abiodun says, you know what, until we have a PDP president at the Aso Villa, I don't think it's time for us to actually talk about me stepping aside. So let's put Abiodun's concerns on one path and also the concerns of members of the party saying, you know what, for equity to be seen to be reigning in our party, you have to step aside. So where do we find a balance, especially for a party in opposition looking forward to 2023?
Well, Amaka, I think first of all, we need to understand that political parties and crisis is like flying an aircraft and turbulence. You know, they are always going to be inseparable. Even if when you try to resolve a crisis, you know, another crisis will rear its head. And in the case of big parties like the PDP and the APC, it's something that you have to continue to deal with. And the hallmark of a good political party is the ability to resolve this crisis, you know, to ensure sustainability. You know, first of all, we want to trust that they will be able to deal with this crisis. And second, you know, it's going to be very important for them to deal with it because there's a major contest coming up and they cannot afford to be in disarray ahead of the elections, you know. But coming to the specifics now, in the case of PDP, it's very obvious, but this thing keeps coming up, you know. Before, ahead of their presidential primary, they were talking about zoning, they were talking about balancing, and it's slightly contradictory somewhat for us to still be talking about, you know, this kind of fairness, balances and imbalances in the PDP. In a case where we're given the understanding, we're told that it's probably not important. What is important is productivity and efficiency, you know. So, but it's okay. We understand where Chief Bajajos is coming from, but I don't know how far it can go. It's just going to be some kind of complaint. Okay, they're going to be saying, yes, we have noted what you're saying, you know, but let's win the election first, then we'll try to resolve it. That's how I see. That's how I imagine that it's going to end. It's not going to go too far.
That's a good stand by the chairman of the party and even leadership of the party saying, you know what, we're not going to look into these agitations for him to step aside.
He is not the first person to.
Do you think this will be detrimental to the party looking forward to the elections 2023?
Well, Amaka may not be very definite. You know, it's a political situation and these things can be very, very fluid. But it's not the first person to say it. You know, I remember a chieftain of the PDP once said, I think the chairman of the BOT, you know, said the promise they gave was that they will resolve these things when they win the election, not when the party presidential flag bearer has emerged, you know. So there's a controversy over when they agreed to actually do some balancing, as the case could be. But now it's being pushed to post-presidential post-general election period. And you can understand with them, because if they now say, okay, they want to start changing, their players in the middle of the game, it can turn out to be problematic in a case where they are in the opposition and they have a very strong ruling party to contest against, even though the ruling party has its own contradictions, its own conflicts as well. And which was why we're making the point that they cannot really do away with conflicts. What matters really is how they manage the conflicts. And of course, you credit these political parties very well, that overall they've not done badly in handling their crisis, no matter how deep-seated it appears to be.
But eternal wranglings and the rest, really putting the parties apart, and but the judges' wish cannot be wished away just like that, for equity, fairness, and the rest. And of course, we hear again that even the governor of Rivers State, Wike, is very much interested in now heading the People's Democratic Party and the rest. How do you juxtapose this? You know?
But Christian, when are we going to stop talking about this fairness, equity, and all of that? Earlier on, we were talking about it. If they could paper the crack over the need for...
because we still have, a provision of the federal character, balance in the Constitution, so we can't really stop.
That's the point I'm making. In Section 37 speaks about zoning.
But earlier on, they threw away the zoning and had a northern presidential candidate, So, and of course, we are back again talking about equity. So maybe they should continue to paper the crack onto the general election. The crack should continue. But dealing with it is what matters. And I'm arguing that, it's impossible for us to have, a peaceful political party process, in any situation. So what matters is the ability of the leaders, to just hold down the groups, hold down the powerful interests, hold down the agitators, and say, okay, we'll resolve this at some point. And that's their major characteristics. Most of the time, they still have some things that causes, that makes their bellies to ache, and they're never able to resolve it. They move on in pain.
The APC, they were never able to resolve the Osun, disintegration, the power play, and the rest, and that's the lamentation of the National Party, Abdullahi Adamu.
Even the chairman is saying that, maybe this unity within the party cost us the Osun gubernatorial post. Do you think the APC has learnt its lesson, from what was said?
That's also contestable, because you can't say it was because they were disagreeing. Remember that in the last governorship election in Osun, the PDP was even said to have won, and of course, Adeniyi campaign with the theme that we are now out to recover our stolen mandate, believing strongly that he actually won, and this time around he has won. So it may not just be a factor of the internal crisis in the APC, irrespective of the disagreement in there.
Of a ruling party to actually be saying this is one of the major issues that led to us losing Osun. Yes, we do know that the sitting governor right now, Boyega Oyetola, has gone to the tribunals. We know that is a case on the side, but I want to look at the fact that the chairman himself is the one who's speaking and saying, our own internal crisis might have been part of the factors that led to us losing Osun State. What do you make of that, really? And do you think the party is really learning its lessons as we look forward to the big one, which is the 2023 general polls?
We only hope that they will learn their lessons, but it's just a work in progress, and I see them changing tactics, because personalities are also changing. Before the presidential primaries, we didn't have Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, neither did we have former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. These ones have now emerged as influential figures, people who can rein in and call on all warring factions to say, okay, look, we have a bigger project ahead of us. Can we have peace? And let's win this election, and we'll find ways of assuaging interests that are conflicting. So it's work in progress. It's something that we will still continue to watch, very keenly. But one thing that we can be certain of is going to continue to be interesting.
Yeah, the interests are indeed very conflicting, particularly when you look at the threat level of Chief Bode George. He's a chieftain of the PDP, to say the Southwest may just not, or he may not campaign for the party in the Southwest.
There were threats in the build-up to the presidential primary, Christian. There were threats that if threats came on from different sections, that if the presidential candidate, had come from a particular section of the country,
to the southeast,
that's why there will be this one will happen. But of course, we are now seeing that interests are gradually being resolved. People are being whipped into line. Things are taking shape. Promises are being given. Here and there, they are being assuaged gradually. So we'll continue to see this agitation, threats, like you said. Yeah, but they always have ways of resolving it. These politicians, I keep saying, I like to always say this. They are very good in reconciliation, in rapprochement, and in forging ahead in all cases. Even if the bellies of many people will still be aching, they will still move on.
At the end of the day, they will say, when it comes to politics, there's no permanent enemies. It's just permanent interests. Yeah. Really, at the end of the day. Abiodun Adeniyi, would have to say thank you so much for joining us tonight on the program.